A little inside baseball for those of you watching on YouTube is yours truly forgot to put his headphones in the jack.
Might need those
on a Wednesday afternoon. A beautiful day in the capital city. Welcome aboard the Postgame show. I am ready to go, I promise. These 45-minute shows are throwing me off, man. Like my day is the same, and then I realize
No, I did something really similar today when, I was cutting up some audio earlier in our office space, and I had my headphones on, and I'm pressing play, and I can't hear anything on the waveform, and then after about 3 minutes, I realized my headphones weren't plugged in.
And there it is.
There it is. Yeah. And you know what? I plugged my headphones in. It worked a whole lot better.
I believe you.
My headphones.
You could hear them. Yeah. Look at that. He's magic. Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. We will indeed give way to Carolina baseball coming up in 45 minutes' time. Queens is coming down from Charlotte to take on the Gamecocks.
I love Freddie Mercury.
Right, yes. Who remain undefeated after last night's big victory over Winthrop. So a couple of teams from up that way making their way into Founders Park this week. Carolina will have Belmont coming over from Nashville this weekend. And then, boy, you jump right in. Clemson next weekend. They're number 10. Carolina number 21. I imagine those numbers will change before those two meet. Two of the games in Columbia and then one up in Clemson. I think the Clemson game is the third game, yes? Does that sound right? I don't have the schedule in front of me. I should probably know.
I know March 1st is here. March 2nd is the Battle of Bull Street.
Okay, so then the third is up in Clemson.
I think the third.
Yeah, there you go. That's how it would work. We'll get into some Carolina basketball for you. No midweek game this week for USC as they still try to – listen, when there isn't a game to scout and discuss and all you have is the last one, it's weird this week, and because of how Saturday went down, it's harder, I think. But Mr. Campbell has done some looking at where things are, and a lot of the things you see right now certainly are predicated on a premise of if the season ended today, which it does not. But with 5 games left, you feel like you need to go 2 and 3. Any combination of that, perhaps?
Yeah. I mean, even 1 and 4, I don't think absolutely kills you. It obviously would ruin your chance at starting the SEC tournament on Friday. That goes right out the window. But 2 and 3 in terms of actual tournament seeding or like your spot in the tournament, you're fine. I don't know exactly how much that would change where you are on the seed line because it seems pretty even.
And I still say, I don't know how the team, look at it, but I still say to what you just alluded to, starting your tournament on Friday, your SEC tournament on Friday, obviously, is still a very good and very attainable goal. Again, it's going to let you know in this year's Southeastern Conference, you're squarely in. No bubble talk, no whatever else. At that point, that weekend, you may be playing for your seed line. But if you don't, what exactly does that look like? And that's why these games, that's why Saturday, even if you were going to take a hit in the net, you weren't going to take a hit in the conference standings. And that, Elijah, as we all know, is what gets you that opportunity on Friday. And that's why Saturday's loss at home to LSU hurt so badly and why you must go back, as you pointed out yesterday, and Bill Gunner and I were doing our TV show this morning, and he said the same thing. You got to go get one of these road games again. You just have to. They don't, again, must win, can't lose. I don't care how you want to label it. You certainly can't go over, and I don't think you will. But you need to steal one back. And I don't know. I haven't looked. Carolina won't be favored Saturday.
The home court advantage, they might not be favored in a Vegas gambling line.
Right. Or in the BPI. Now, the EBPI, which is what we're going to take some looks at today.
Yes.
Is kinder to South Carolina, perhaps, than the just regular BPI.
Yeah, the EBPI gives you a favorable chance to beat Ole Miss. I'd say 55%.
Now, are you using like an old Commodore 64 and it just can't do as much as today's computers? Like, what does that look like?
It's more of a Nintendo 64.
Okay.
And I just run numbers through it, and this basically is what we have. But
you don't even have any idea what a Commodore 64 is, do you?
Not at all. Yeah. But I do know what a Nintendo 64 is, and it's fun.
Well, let's put it this way: the processor in a Nintendo 64 is is probably about 64 times better.
So it's an upgrade.
Yeah.
This is a fancy machine that links up to my brain.
The Commodore 64, for those of a certain age, will remember, was one of your first widely sold desktop home computers.
How much space?
Geared primarily to the younger users out there. Yeah, there's probably, I don't know. I mean, anyway, that's all. Trust me.
So the EBPI works on a Nintendo 64, a little bit more modern, but also still a little outdated.
So, I mean, okay, give me a couple. Let's say I'm the nail-biting Gamecock men's basketball fan right now. Mm-hmm. And while I don't believe the sky fell on my team Saturday afternoon against LSU, again, the sky bumped me on the head.
Yeah.
And then kind of sprung itself back up. Where are to stay with a sky analogy, where are my biggest rays of hope at this point that everything's going to be okay in terms of matchups?
In terms of matchups, I think in the Ole Miss and Texas A&M game, not only do I like the matchup, I firmly believe you're a better team than both of those. Ole Miss, if you go back and watch that game here in Columbia, they had to hit a lot of really tough two-point jumpers. After the game, when I asked Lamont Paris about it, he kind of walked me through an exercise you can do to see exactly how many points a team scored outside the paint. And if they scored more than 10 points outside the paint, then they relied a whole lot. Any number in double digits is a lot for a team in modern college basketball. And Ole Miss scored 22 points outside of the painted area in that game. That weren't three-pointers, by the way. So long contested jumpers.
Right.
And every single one of them were contested because that's kind of what the defense allows you to do. I don't think Ole Miss continues doing that, even though Ole Miss does shoot the highest volume of long two-point jumpers in the SEC. They make that at less than a 38% clip as well. So even on an average day, they're making that 38% of the time. South Carolina's defense allows you to shoot a lot of those. I think the math just won't be mathing, as some kids would say. And I think, if we're going to test the theory, as Lamont likes to say, again in Oxford, I like South Carolina's chance. Ole Miss also hasn't gotten any better on the rebounding side of the ball, despite having two 7-footers, one of them being 7'5" and could probably dunk standing up. They don't rebound very well at all. I think you could still, with a week's rest, be able to be the more physical team in that game, despite being on the road. And then when it comes to Texas A&M, here's a fun one. Would you like to guess the ranking of what Texas A&M is on offensive rebounding?
In the conference or in the country? Or
in the great nation, in this great country.
Well, top 25?
They're number one.
Oh.
There's not a team that has a higher that grabs a higher percent of their misses than Texas A&M. But you know the problem, Jay? They miss a bleep ton of jumpers.
Okay, I was going to say, is this a byproduct of missing a lot?
Yes. Yeah. They, in the country, shoot 27% from three. That ranks 357 out of 362. In effective field goal shooting, which is a field goal percentage metric that weighs out that threes are obviously worth more than twos, they rank 346th out of 362.
Wow.
Their best offense is Wade Taylor shooting a 20-foot contested jumper and having three of their forwards go get it and try to put it back up. And you know what? That doesn't work out very well, too, because you know what they are shooting percentages in terms of two-point percentages? They only make 47% of their twos, which is 293rd out of 362 teams. So they're really good at grabbing their missed shots. They have to grab a lot of them, but they're not really good at putting that ball back in the basket even after their missed shot. I think that can play into South Carolina's hands favorably because they at least are able to put out some lineups that can be physical and maybe limit the opposition's offensive rebounding opportunities.
Looking at a common opponent in Tennessee that both A&M and South Carolina beat, I think we understand as we follow them. I don't just mean you and me, but the audience knows and has heard us and others break that game down in Knoxville a few weeks back. But what did A&M do to Tennessee? Where, I just, again, looking at a common opponent that they both beat and a team that's better than both of them. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I'm not saying how does that play into Carolina's hands in terms of trying to beat Texas A&M, but what didn't happen for Tennessee that day, or what did happen for A&M?
So really, the magic number here is 11. Texas A&M hit 11 three-pointers of their 28 attempts.
Okay.
You want to know how many times they've hit at least 11 threes in a game this year?
Well, I'm going to guess that was the only one.
That's one of three. The first
okay.
one was in the first game of the year against Texas A&M Commerce.
All right.
Which, yes, it is a school.
Uh-huh.
And they hit 11 of 28 threes against them and scored 78 points. The other time they hit 12 threes against Kentucky. That game went to multiple overtimes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, really, if you're Texas A&M, you got to be able to hit 7 to 11 threes.
Uh-huh.
The problem is they don't do that a lot. They seldomly do that. So, if we're just playing the numbers game, I really like your chance to go to Texas A&M and win that game because offensively, they are broken. And they showed so last night when they got beat by Arkansas at home, a team that is broken on offense and defense, went into Reed Arena and gave them the business.
So coming back to Saturday afternoon, this coming Saturday, not looking back to LSU, but looking ahead to Ole Miss. And again, a game that Carolina, or a team, that Carolina has already played and beaten here in Columbia. And you mentioned, again, how hot Ole Miss was from two, especially in the first half. And we know that Chris Beard did some things coaching-wise to begin to negate a lot of what Carolina likes to do. And I know a lot of that, and you've talked about it, is really closing down passing lanes. LSU, I thought, was doing a really nice job of that. I mean, Carolina wants to move the basketball, and when they can't, it stymies their offense. And we saw that against Ole Miss. We saw that against LSU. Does Ole Miss come out and do that quicker? What does Carolina do? I'm anxious to see the chess match here because I can't really believe that Chris Beard says, okay, we'll come out and do the same things because despite how good they were from two in the first half in Columbia, the Gamecocks still built a big double-digit lead. A
massive lead. And I think the biggest thing, if you're Ole Miss, what you're kicking yourself in that stretch where it went from, maybe 6 or 7 points, they got up to 8-16, I think was ended up being the highest deficit they faced. When South Carolina made that run, a lot of it was drive and kickouts. The Ole Miss surrendered a lot of paint touches off the dribble. And this is where the health of Meechie Johnson's going to come in, too. If Meechie's not able to play, then it's the EBPI maybe goes in Ole Miss's favor a little bit because you don't have a lot of guys that I feel great about right now to be able to create a lot of that offense on a dribble drive. Meechie's been really great this year in the second half of the year, not because he's been shooting the lights out. He's actually below average now in terms of three-point percentage, but because you have to respect his three-point shot, he's able to create some shots for everybody else off the dribble. He's able to get in the paint and kick out and get those kick-out threes that Lamont and his team really like to generate their looks off of. If you don't have him, it's going to be on Talon, on Miles, you have to get some minutes out of Morris. You'll have to have guys that are going to be able to get in there. Jacoby's going to have to get into the paint off the dribble and kick out. They're going to have to be able to generate more looks off the bounce against Ole Miss because they do a decent job of at least closing away passing lanes.
It'll be interesting to see, and obviously we'll have more on this game both tomorrow and on Friday. And, of course, tomorrow night, I want to remind you, Carolina Calls with Lamont Paris and Derek Scott. Derek will be on tomorrow with Elijah and me. Tomorrow we have a full show.
Massive show.
Yeah. And it's actually, like what we're supposed to do. So only one this week, but we'll have it. We'll be out at Sound and Images tomorrow. Looking forward to that. And Brad Muller will be on tomorrow's program as well. But I'm not into any kind of must-win territory for this team. But I think as much for their resume as their psyche, you need a win. Because you certainly did. You did enough to win and lose on Saturday, but you should have won that game. There's no other way to put it. I can sit here and say, "Hey, good for you, LSU," and that won't be wrong. But you've got to bounce back from that one and go steal one of these two, and you've got two in a row on the road against teams that are either, I'd call them bubble teams. I think it's fair.
Oh, they're both, Lenardi and Palm both have them square on the bubble.
Yeah, so I mean that'd be big wins for them, and it'd be a nice opportunity for Carolina as well. Will the SEC go to 9 football games soon enough? The Texas AD might have let the cat out of the bag. We'll give you some details as the postgame show continues. You know, unlike big national banks, when you save your money with Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union, it stays right here in the Midlands of South Carolina. True story. Rather than paying stockholders, loaning that money out of state, maybe even internationally, Palmetto Citizens supports your neighbors, area small business, local charities, and so many others. And I know this for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is the fact that my wife and I are customers of Palmetto Citizens, have been for a while. Great folks. If you are ready for a car loan, a new credit card, a mortgage, a home equity line, education loans, money really for any purpose whatsoever, Palmetto Citizens is ready to help you out and to work with you to customize terms and payments to fit your needs and budget. You can apply online anytime at palmettocitizens.org or during business hours, stop into any of their 14 area locations, like the one on Millwood that my wife and I use. Palmetto Citizens, achieve your potential. Welcome back in. Postgame show continues. Abbreviated version ahead of Gamecock baseball, which will come your way inside of a half hour's time right here in Columbia. And then Friday against Belmont. So we have a couple of more abbreviated shows. I have 3 more today, Friday, and next Tuesday or Wednesday. One of those days. It's one of them. I don't remember which.
They're all the same to me.
Well, no,
Days
Tuesday,
ending Y.
because Tuesday is the day before Wednesday, so it's not quite the same.
Yeah, it's whatever.
It's close enough, I guess.
I just show up
Sure.
every day, and if no one's here, I get to go home. Don't even need a calendar anymore.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Just say you didn't see anybody. And you're like, I don't know what happened. A lot of us are saying, I don't know what happened when it comes to a discussion of 9 conference football games inside the SEC. But now, whether he meant to or not, did Texas AD Chris Del Conte let a little too much slide? He recently was speaking at I guess some kind of luncheon. I forget what it was. I'll try to find out. But he was speaking somewhere. It was a Texas town hall.
Is he running for public office?
No, I don't think so. I think it's one of those like where you have fans ask questions.
Passed around the offering plate.
And he said that everything right now points to the Southeastern Conference playing 8 games again in 2025, but then not sure. Quote, we're working on going to a 9-game schedule, but we have a ways to go with that. I would say this year we have an 8-game schedule. The following year, we have another 8-game schedule. Then we'll look at going into a 9-game conference schedule. For the record, yours truly has been on board with a 9-game schedule for a while. Once other conferences, most notably the Big Ten, went to 9, I think you need to keep up. I do not, for what it's worth, believe that a lack of a 9th conference game this year is what kept Georgia out of the playoff. Or for that matter, put Alabama in. Again, for Georgia, the unfortunate timing of their loss is why Georgia didn't play for a national championship. A couple of things here. Number one, let's look at the money. ESPN and the SEC have a deal that, offers a prorated share for new members. In other words, the deal that is going to kick in for the SEC with Disney was signed before Texas and Oklahoma were joined the league. But the deal allows for that prorated share to be paid to however many other schools. That's what's there. But it doesn't say there's anything for more games. That would have to be something new, either built into the current deal or you just rewrite the deal. And for a quick history lesson, if you're wondering, maybe you are, maybe you're not, this is one of the reasons why the SEC and CBS marriage ended. The Southeastern Conference wasn't thrilled that CBS didn't want to pay even a little bit more money when A&M and Missouri came into the league. SEC was like, hey, okay, Missouri may not bring that much in terms of what you're looking for, other than, two pretty good TV markets. But granted, pro sports towns in St. Louis and KC. But Mizzou is the only big college in town, if you will. But, oh, by the way, we just opened up the Texas market. In addition to the fact that you're already televising our games nationally, you now will have a lot more eyeballs on the second biggest team in Texas. And CBS was like, hey, cool, thanks. You will not see one more dime. And that basically went away. And the SEC, I think, I don't want to say held a grudge, but they might have a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Always in the hunt for more money.
Yeah. So anyway, that deal's gone, and now it's exclusive with Disney, but it'll be, ABC instead of CBS in terms of a broadcast partner, and then obviously ESPN's and SEC Network and whatever else. So there's that. Will Disney pay you more? And right now, Disney isn't committing. They're not saying no. They're just not saying yes. And Disney is still struggling with a few of its own finances in other areas, most notably that Disney Plus is losing a lot of money. The Mouse ain't real happy about that. The parks are doing great.
The Mouse has a lot of business ventures that are all working at various levels.
Yeah. Mickey and the crew loving the business down in Orlando especially. That's doing jam up, man. They're selling out. Disney Plus and some of the Disney movies of late, not so much.
They're working on it.
So, we'll see. The second part of why they may not. And I think this is, from a pure competition standpoint, Elijah, this is the one that's most intriguing to me. I think the SEC is saying to itself, whether it's the coaches that are for this, Kirby Smart and a few others, or the coaches that are against it, Mark Stoops and a few others, let's see what it looks like in terms of playoff bids, minus our champion. Because our champion's going to get the automatic. But how many at-larges do we get? And I was telling you, now, it's a combination, and hear me out as I say this, but I was listening to Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports on a podcast this week, and Dennis had gone back and taking into account the teams that will make up the combined SEC and Big Ten. All right, so you're including, as an SEC school, Texas and Oklahoma. You're including Southern Cal, UCLA, Oregon, Washington as Big Ten schools. Those two combined, if during the CFP era it had been 12, would have accounted for 7.6 slots per 12 for the entire run. Well over half, nearly two-thirds. Nearly two-thirds. So if it's not having an impact, and we don't know yet, but if it's not having an impact on how many you get, and let's just say it's 4 and 4, right? Mm-hmm. If you round up, I don't know if the SEC is going to change or have a need to change. And I wonder if at that point the Big Ten might go, we don't really need 9. Now they have more schools, and they've already done it, so they'll probably keep it because their new deal takes that into account.
See, here's the thing too, because I was thinking about this earlier today with the 7.5 or 7.6 slots taken up every year. Depending on the year, some SEC schedules with 9 games will be a lot harder than others. I think the cannibalism could keep that number a lot lower than it used to be because that number takes into account Oklahoma, who didn't have to play anybody in the SEC and went to a few college football playoffs and was right on the cusp of it a couple of years, including this past year.
Yeah,
Texas for a year or two here and there, Washington and Oregon. Washington, who those two teams made up all of the Pac-12's college football playoff appearances.
Yeah, Southern Cal never went. That's crazy.
Wild. Yeah, and in all 10 years, they never went and never got particularly close. Right. But I think the amount of cannibalism, because let's say a really good Washington team that in any other year would have been one of those teams that at least contends for it or would have gone in the top 12 instead, because they'd be 10-2 or 9-3. Uh-huh. Say they go 8-4. And the committee might be reluctant to put an 8-4 Washington team in, but there was a really impressive 11-1 or 10-2 Kansas State team that, even though it was in a lesser conference, flat out did more winning. Mm-hmm. I think there's going to be enough cannibalization to where these two conferences might not still get that number, and the SEC might play the system and say, hey, the less we have to play each other, the better. Yeah. The better we can get that number at 7.6 be a little closer.
And I get the coaches, too, and you mentioned some of those years that are going to be harder. Again, even with the Big Ten right now, every other year you're playing 5 road games. I get it. But every other year you're playing 5 home games, which I get it. And there really isn't a way to do anything about that. Just go win the game, right? But you're right. How the committee. Yep. So I it's interesting, but I think Del Conte is like saying, I think we want to, but we'll figure it out. Get into a few other things on what the CFP is looking at their meetings in Dallas and get you ready for Gamecock baseball as the post-game show rolls on. Welcome back in. I was just sharing a story with Elijah. By the way, he's Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Gamecock Baseball coming your way. They're just talking about Bon Secours Wellness Arena hosting the SEC Women's Basketball Tournament. And I was telling Elijah whenever they changed the name, I remember a commercial was airing. I'm pretty sure it was for Bon Jovi, a concert. And this is when Michael Haney was still working with us. And Michael grew up in Anderson, so he knows that area better than I. And I remember, and y'all remember that was Bilo Center. It was the Bilo Center. That was the arena in Greenville. But I remember the commercial saying, like coming up at the, Bon Secours Wellness Center. And I was like, so I remember asking Michael, I was like, dude, is that, what is that like a place that you go do yoga? Like what
Sounds like
that?
A hospital.
Or so like, and I didn't know what Bon Secours was. But you say Bon Secours Wellness Center, and again, that sounds like a place where like you go in and take, aerobics and, or maybe have physical therapy. Right? Like it does, and he goes, no, that's Bilo Center. And I was like, oh, good. Because I was like worried for Bon Jovi for a minute. I was like, man, how many people are y'all playing in front of these days?
It's like, oh, it's a nice charity concert.
Yeah,
for
but it did. But
nice.
You say, again, now they at least took out the word center and have replaced it with arena, which, and now I know what it is because it's been a while. But at the time, I did not know that there had been a name change. It's not nothing. Greenville's a fine town, but I had not really been paying attention to the business of the naming rights of Greenville's downtown arena. You know what I'm saying?
If wellness is coming before center and the name ends in wellness center, I'm not going to assume that is a
15,000 seat arena.
No, absolutely not.
Again, it sounds like, again, like almost like a place either like, at a hospital, like a gym at the hospital, or maybe, like an annex of the YMCA or something like that.
Yeah, or a physical therapy place.
But a wellness center, that just sounds like, hey, come to the neighborhood wellness center this week. We have, free measles vaccines for the kids, diabetes
bon
screening.
Jovi's gonna be playing.
Right. And Bon Jovi's coming this Saturday night.
His Arena Football League investment must have really taken him down.
Like Friday bingo.
Friday bingo, Saturday Bon Jovi, Sunday cakewalk.
That's what I. So anyway, I remember that. And I was like, and he was like, no, like don't worry for Bon Jovi, they're fine, and Greenville's fine too. It's just a new name for the arena because I didn't know. I didn't know what that was.
That's where it really does matter if you are the so-and-so center or the so-and-so arena.
Right.
Then it really matters.
Right.
Sometimes those can be interchangeable terms, and these buildings use them as interchangeable terms, but not for this one. Yeah. This one needed some clarification.
But
I get the confusion.
Yeah. But they'll sell it out, the Bon Secours Wellness Arena, for the Southeastern Conference Women's Basketball Tournament. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say the majority of fans will be pulling for the Gamecocks.
And I will go out on a limb and say the team playing on the last day of that will be the Gamecocks.
All right. There you go. That's a little bigger limb, but not by much.
Not by much. Barely.
The CFP Board of Managers yesterday, that is made up of a chancellor or president from each of the 10 major conferences, plus Dr. John Jenkins, the president of the University of Notre Dame. And they voted yesterday unanimously for the new 5+7 playoff format beginning this coming 2024 football season. Today, they are still in Dallas discussing the hard part because, again, the easy part was what they voted on yesterday. Today, and I don't know that any decisions will be made later today. It's an hour earlier, so we're looking at just past 2:30 Central Time while they're meeting in Dallas. Today, they're talking money. They're talking about potentially voting to finalize the new CFP television deal with Disney, which, again, would more than double that. The terms are out there. The terms have been agreed to by both sides. It's more a matter of ratification of the deal, which has not yet happened. And I'm not sure where the sticking points are. One of them, honestly, may be, and you and I touched on this briefly yesterday, whether or not the SEC and the Big Ten want to flex a little bit. And we just mentioned that they're likely to get roughly 2/3 of the field of 12. And they may say, so we're going to want more of the money. And I wonder, Elijah, if the others don't push back and go, well, hey, If each of you get a third, then each of you get a third. Whether you get more in addition to that or not shouldn't make any big difference, and we need some of this. So again, yesterday was the easy part. This gets harder.
This is where there's going to be a little more tension now. There's going to be more, I guess, more counter punches being thrown one way or another. I think it's easier to determine exactly who we're going to allow into this private invitational, and then who gets to take home the winnings, or a majority of the winnings.
If one of the things could be there's no playoff, the Athletic says one possible alternative is what many across college sports feared when the SEC and Big Ten announced their new joint advisory group, an eventual breakaway of the richest and most powerful leagues in college athletics. Even if only serving as an implied threat, it could give the two conferences significant leverage in negotiations that determine the future of college athletics. It will. They're going to flex. Does the flex work? That'll be what's interesting. We'll probably have more on this story and others tomorrow. We need to get out of here, yeah? Time to do it. Gamecock baseball coming your way. Carolina versus Queens. We will see you guys tomorrow from Sound and Images down by Williams-Brice. Looking forward to it. Enjoy baseball. See you.